Concussed, The American Dream is a documentary that takes you through the life of former Giant Super Bowl champion Tyler Sash, whose NFL career was taken from him prematurely because of concussions, and NFL Hall of Famer Brett Favre, as he deals with the aftereffects of playing football for 20 years professionally. Well, joining us to break down the film is its writer and its director, David Kano. David, man, groundbreaking, powerful film, and I've only seen the trailer. I got to start off by asking you, what made you want to direct this film?
Well, my background is journalism originally, journalism and film. But when I started doing my master's, my graduate work, my thesis was on media portrayal of head trauma in sports. So I wrote this 92-page thesis on it. And when I was doing my research, I thought, well, this would be a great time to make a documentary film on this. I played football up to college. I'd had concussions starting from 8th grade, where I was taken to the Children's Hospital, MRI done on my brain. And from then on, I wanted to see what does research say? What are the experts saying? And then I started working with UFC fighters. So I've worked with Nick Diaz, Anthony Medeiros, and I would go to their sparring sessions. I started training jiu-jitsu, but then when I was hitting the bags, I thought, well, maybe I don't want to get in the ring because they were taking blows to the head. So I thought this can't be good. So when I started doing my research, I saw that, getting hit in the head, we're not meant to do that.
So when you're talking about listening and finding out what the research and the experts say, what are some of the things that you learned about how suffering concussions while playing the game of football and UFC and MMA, combat sports, can not only impact the brain, but can lead to CTE as well?
Sure. So when you start getting hit in the head under a certain age, and this is coming from the Chris Nowinski, he was saying, and even Dr. Ann McKee, who was Time Magazine's top 100 most influential people of 2018, if you're getting hit in the head under the age of 13, it's worse for that individual as they grow older. And so what I was seeing is those that got hit in the head at a younger age were having some of these effects of CTE. And of course, they're trying to find ways to a biomarker where they can actually say, hey, you have CTE when you're alive. Because right now, and I was there when Dr. Ann McKee had a real brain, and it's kind of interesting because they're not allowed to go in prejudice, so they don't know who the brain is until after. And she cut it in half for me, or for the crew, and then she looked at it and she was able to diagnose the brain with CTE, and then come to find out it was a former college football player. It wasn't a superstar, but it just showed that, well, you can see it after you die. And what it would be interesting is when we're alive, can we see how much we have? But here's a flip coin of that is, and Brett Favre said the same thing. He said, well, if they told me I had CTE, do I really want to know that? Because you can't make it better right now. It's neurodegenerative, which means it gets worse.
Off the top of my head, Doc, I could think of a lot of football players who, if you told them while they're active and still playing in the league, they would still try and play for as long as they can. It's the game we love, the game we sacrifice so much for, and you're playing a kid's game for a king's ransom. It's hard to just walk away from a game that can set your family up for life. I mentioned it being about former Giant Tyler Sash and Brett Favre. What were some of the similarities in the stories and the trauma of Tyler and Brett?
That's a great question, Brandon, because you'll see that as the movie moves forward, there's a parallel. You see Tyler from a small town, wasn't highly touted, barely made the team, and then you have Brett Favre, superstar, and you kind of see their paths are parallel, of one player that's not known but grinding, fighting to make it, and then the superstar. But what you see is that the hits to the head, you can't prevent that. I mean, I know they're putting on the NFL the Guardian caps, and which is great. The NFL has done some really good things, and it's kind of interesting because now the fans are complaining that, oh, well, you can't touch the quarterback, or it's soft, but they're trying to protect the players. And so I think the NFL are doing some really good things. But something else I wanted to know, I mean, we have a sequel to this, a boxing one. Roy Jones Jr., Hall of Famer, and this goes to your point about football players still wanting to play. Roy Jones Jr. said, if you told me I could go win a world championship tomorrow and I have to die fighting in that ring, I'm going to go ahead and die because I'm going to get that championship. So it's that mentality that's kind of interesting.
And that, again, that's a mentality that it's hard to protect. And you mentioned the NFL allowing players to wear the Guardian caps, not only in practice, but they can wear in the games now as well. You see a lot of fans in the social media comments talking about how the game is getting soft and those things are ugly, but they've never been hit by Ray Lewis. I can guarantee them that. So you think the Guardian caps is a step in the right direction in terms of protection and prevention? And is there anything else you think the NFL could do in terms of the prevention aspect of it?
Well, I think the NFL is really, like I said, they've done a fantastic job of trying to protect the game. At the end of the day, it's a combat sport. It's a contact sport. It's a contact sport, and it's a rough sport. You got guys that can go bench 450 pounds that are running 4 or 5 40s and going heads up. I mean, something has to give. You can put on a big SpongeBob helmet, but at that point, I mean, you're still going to have some type of collision. That's just what it is. And with them taking out hits to the head, yeah, that's doing a really good job. And now that the players are learning how to wrap up rather than lead with their head and tackle with their upper body, I think that's going to mitigate some of these concussions and head trauma. So I do believe as we see these newer players retire, right? I mean, we're looking like 10, 15, 20 years down the road. They probably will be better off than the guys, these Ironmen that we've had playing. I mean, remember, go back to the old days where they had no face guard and just a leather helmet on. There was one of the guys, and he didn't make the cut, Gary Kutzinger. Unfortunately, he didn't make the cut in the film, but it was sad because as I was interviewing him, I would ask him a question, he would answer it, and then he would keep answering it over and over. And then he would say, "Did I answer that question already?" And he played, I believe, 7 years back in the 60s. And so there's nothing that you could do. And his wife was there and kind of helpless. And he was broke, no money. They were living off of, just relatives' wages. So it was kind of a sad story that this guy played. No one will never hear of Gary Kutzinger, but here he is, and he has to deal with it, and him and his family until he dies.
Yeah, people say the game is getting softer. I say it's getting smarter, especially when we're talking about these high-level, world-class athletes smashing into each other at full speed. Something's got to give. We mentioned about the prevention aspect of it. What do you think about what the NFL is doing in terms of post-career services?
Well, and that's something that was brought up in that major lawsuit, right? That they wanted more help afterward. And I think the NFL is looking at what can we do to protect players. And if you compare the NFL to boxing or MMA, the juxtaposition is drastic, because in boxing, in combat sports, boxing, MMA, they don't have any type of insurance. They don't have any type of 401k or post-retirement. So the NFL is trying to do things so that their players are set up to get that care. And so that's something that I implore them for. And I think, again, what we're doing with this film, because, people say, well, you're just trying to rock the boat. And it's like, well, I just want to create awareness. And really, this is a story of a mom losing her son. It's like any other great story. It's not just, some people think, well, it's just talking heads, it's just a documentary, and I can get that from the internet. But no, we really go deep into Tyler's story. We went to Oskaloosa, Iowa, the middle of nowhere, where he grew up several times. And so that way you get to know who Tyler was. And what's interesting is when I watched the film, if anyone has a dry eye by the end of the film, you might not have a pulse. Because I think it's that we detail to the day, to the hour, his last hours. And it's a really sad story because his mom, sister was there. And sometimes I feel like I'm still going to interview Tyler. I mean, he played with the team that you were on. Yep. He was after you. But I feel like one day I'm going to call Tyler up like, hey, it's your turn. And then I think about me being Christian. I'm like, why did he die? And this guy he was a good dude. If you're going to say someone's a good dude, yep. Like he was good. He was taking care of his fiance's child. He was ready to get married, and he wasn't doing some of the things that we've seen other players do, right? With domestic violence. And it's like, why is he gone? And I still get emotional a little bit thinking about him.
Yeah. Yeah. And for Tyler's mom to be on there and to be so open in the documentary, I think that right there is heroic when it comes to her kind of telling her story and Tyler's story. So what would you say to the moms out there who've got some young football players that want to be the next Justin Jefferson, that want to be the next Saquon Barkley? When they go and watch that film, what would you say to those moms of the young athletes whose sons are next when it comes to playing this game that we love so much?
If they're that good, then put them in tennis. No, I mean if they're that athletic, I mean,
Yeah.
you can turn, look at Tiger Woods, right? I mean, he turned pro at what, 16, 17? The truth of the matter is, if they're that good, they'll be able to make the NFL when they're 18 or 19. You can't even join until after your 1 year of college. So you can put someone in at 19 and 20, an athlete, or one of the athletes in it, Christian Okoye, the Nigerian Nightmare. He never even played high school football. I don't think he played football until his junior year in college. He was on the track team at Azusa Pacific when they said, "Hey, you want to join the football team?" So he was so good that he was able to make the NFL. He didn't have to play at a young age. If parents understood that and maybe even did maybe flag football up until that time and teach good technique, I don't think they need to put them in there until, maybe even right 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, I'm with you on the flag football aspect of it. Christian Okoye isn't Christian Jones, though. That man was a freak athlete who you could get away with that. Some kids, growing up like me, I needed to play football. I needed to work on my skills, maybe not get hit and all. My dad's a football coach. I was on the jug machines at a young age, but the athletic movements, the catching the football and stuff, I can see that. But taking out the trauma, taking out the hits and the collisions, I don't think that's something that needs to be done until, like you said, around high school, 15, 16, 17 years old. David, tell the people about the film, where they can find it, and shout out your platform, my man.
Concussed American Dreams, to go concussedfilm.com. It's available for pre-order on Apple TV. It comes out next week. If you've seen this after that, it's out right now. You can get it on Amazon Prime as well. You can follow Brett Favre's account. Mine is Real D Kano. That's REAL, like I'm real, and then DKANO. And so I would just say, if you get a chance to watch it, give it a shot, and if you make it to the end, if you're not teary-eyed, I'll give you your money back. I will.
David, thanks for joining us, man.
Okay, thanks for having me on.